So now we're going to talk about order picking process. After we received goods and put them away and stored them for a while, we get some sales orders and we have to pick those goods and typically, hopefully, multiple goods in a single order. We want to sell as much as we can. One thing we need to think about, are there going to be any minimum order quantities? And this actually has to do with that unitization idea, what's referred to as pack optimization. So if we're selling diapers, or going back to our detergent example, we might say that the minimum order quantity is a pallet because we don't want to break down the unit of a pallet. We're optimizing the use of that pallet. That's just one example. Or maybe it's a full carton. It really depends, but we're talking about as it relates to inventory management, order management, and warehouse operations. A warehouse operation will in part be optimized by having a clear understanding of what the pack optimization is, what the minimum quantities are. Some technology-enabled factors in our second bullet point are what are called pick task simplification. The human element of people having to go out into a warehouse and actually pick an order. Think about an example like an Amazon. If you buy a bunch of goods on Amazon, maybe some accessories for your smartphone and a couple of books and maybe some beauty products, you want that all in one order. How does Amazon manage that to simplify the picking task, especially of different products that could very well be in different parts of a warehouse? Well, one way to do that is to bring the goods to the picker and not send the picker to the goods. That's what's called a stock-to-picker automation, the use of conveyors and such. Automated sorting. When orders are actually being packed, these huge circular carousels that goods come down a conveyor, and the order that I placed, my books, my accessories for my smartphone, and my beauty products, are going to be automatically sorted through that carousel, so all of the products come together in a single physical location, so the packer, can put that order together quickly. Those are using carousels. And then, as silly as it sounds, shorter walking distances for pickers. If we're not using technology to the extent described a moment ago, and people have to go out into the warehouse, much like the gentleman in this picture we have here, and actually pick the orders and build pallets or put the orders into bins, whatever the packing device is, the packing unitization is, we want to minimize the walking distance for pickers. Because if we go back to that Amazon example, books, smartphone accessories, and beauty products, if one picker was going to pick that order, typical size of an Amazon warehouse is upwards of 1 million square feet. That's a long walk to put together a single order. So we want to simplify the picking tasks by hopefully having technology that will help us develop algorithms that shorten the walking distance for pickers. Ideally, you're going to be using some automation, some conveyors and carousels and such, but some companies can't do that. Moving on, are we sending people out into a warehouse to pick a single order? Or are we order batching, where people are out putting together multiple orders before they return to the packing area? Or is a warehouse laid out in such a way that specific products are in specific zones of the warehouse? And I'm the person who picks for all the beauty aids that I mentioned a while ago. So I'm not picking for a single order. I'm just picking all the beauty aids that go into multiple orders, bring it back to the packing area, and they're segregated into separate orders with the books, with the smartphone accessories, etc. That's what zone picking is. Pick sequencing, the order in which orders are picked, that can be handled through algorithms and software. And then scanning technology that can be used at the tail end of an order picking process that helps to foolproof orders. This is quite important, and I've seen this used in multiple environments, but particularly in warehouse operations that are fulfilling e-commerce orders for smartphones, accessories, etc. Which is to say, you might have 4 or 5 or 6 items going into an order: the phone itself, a case, some additional accessories, some headphones, etc. And basically, an order cannot be closed out until all of the goods have been scanned into the carton that it's going to be shipped in. I cannot physically close that order out until all of the items in that order have been accounted for. That's foolproofing, and you usually use technology to do that, and it's quite effective. This is why companies can get upwards of around 99.9% order fill rates and order accuracy rates, all based on scanning technology. So we're ready to put some goods out the door. The shipping process considerations. Some of the first things we need to be thinking about: are we talking about domestic shipments or international shipments? Now, a domestic shipment could be from Shanghai in China to Beijing. That's a domestic shipment. Could be from Sao Paulo in Brazil to Curitiba in the south of Brazil. That's a domestic shipment. And of course, here in the United States, could be the continental U.S. or shipments from Alaska, Hawaii, even Puerto Rico. We have to make that distinction. Are they domestic versus international? The documentation requirements are going to be different. It's likely that the packing requirements are going to be different. The mode of transport is definitely going to be different, or at least more rigorous. So we need to make that first distinction. Number 2, mode of transport. What is the policy for shipping goods? Is it by truck? Is it by rail? Is it by air, by ocean, or a combination of modes of transport, what's referred to as multimodal? We need to know that before we begin the shipping process. And much of those decisions are actually based upon what we talk about in bullet point number 3 here: the cargo characteristics, the characteristics of the goods themselves and the packaging of those goods. So if we're exporting overseas and our products are fragile, they can break easily, ocean freight may not be the best way to go. It might just require the use of air freight. Perishable, maybe we can use ocean freight, or maybe we can use truck or rail. Let's say we're shipping down to Mexico, but it may require refrigeration or even freezer containers. And as we said earlier, hazardous materials are an entirely different ballgame, a whole different set of rules and regulations that must be respected from a legal perspective. And then the other, I should say the final consideration, and this ties back to our module on logistics, is the cargo itself voluminous or dense cargo? And if it is voluminous and fragile, how do we build containers? How do we load trucks? How do we prepare air freight shipments to make the most use of the space and weight limitations of the mode of transport without damaging the merchandise? So all of these factors go into our shipping process considerations. Of course, once we've made those determinations, proper packaging, really quite important. When, from an insurance perspective, and especially on the international side of things, when you look at goods that get damaged or they get rained on, they get crushed, the number one reason why insurance claims are rejected is due to improper packaging. So do we use wood crates? Do we use heavy-duty corrugated cardboard boxes? Do we use standard cartons? What are the dimensions of those cartons? What's the maximum weight allowed in a carton? All very, very mundane, but very, very important considerations. On the shipping side of things, be it domestic or international, it's always important to have, and we've mentioned this a couple of times, a standard operating procedure. What are the documentation requirements? What are the packaging requirements? What do labels need to look like? Who are the approved 3PLs to work with? What steamship lines do we have contracts with? All of the things that go into an SOP, or what's also referred to synonymously as a routing guide. For all intents and purposes, an SOP and a routing guide are the same thing. Do we need to make decisions? Third bullet point on the use of ULDs, what's referred to as a unit loading device. An LD3 for air freight, perhaps a D container. A D container is that heavy corrugated cardboard that can be used for air freight shipments. So we're going to use unit loading devices to help protect high value and or fragile merchandise. Those are policy decisions that we have to make well in advance of goods being moved. And then tying into some of our other considerations, certainly in the model that we saw for a buyer's consolidation, how are we going to load containers? How are we going to load trucks? Perhaps sequenced by purchase order or by delivery stop, where a 53-foot trailer that is going to be pulling out of a deconsolidation center here in Southern California and has 10 stops at retail stores in Nevada, Utah, and Arizona, that trailer is loaded sequenced by the actual stop or by purchase order. So load sequencing becomes an important factor to consider too.